I'd like to call this Committee of the Whole meeting for November 6, 2023 to order in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. A current copy of the act is available at this meeting. Madam Clerk, can you call roll, please?
Bulkley. Augustine Schulte.
Here.
Barr.
Here.
Freshour.
Here.
Hemer.
Here.
Jablonski.
Here.
Lopez. Roth. Schilling. Chair Augustine Schulte, the roll has been called.
Thank you. We have one item on our agenda this evening. It is the review of the Columbus Region Transit Feasibility Study. And I'm not sure, do we have?
We have Corrine, Donahue, but I can speak a little bit into it. So this is provided before you. Really this backstory to get started about a year ago, there was community discussions under the umbrella of United Way and Community and Family Partnership with our partner entities like with industry in regards to workforce retention and recruitment and the need for transportation, as well as hearing from a variety of human service providers and schools around truancy and the aspect of elementary truancy, and that's not necessarily really at the elementary level necessarily the children's choice, but runs into the aspect of transportation. So what really happened was we had initial conversations with a variety of community leaders, included Doug, a part of the conversation with the city, and different transit options within our local community. And what bubbled up was really to do a study to see what is the actual need within our community. And that's where we reached out to NDOT to get their expertise in creating a survey out to our community. And then here is the results and the next step that Corrine's going to speak to.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Corrine Donahue. I work for Olson, but I am the project manager for NDOT Mobility Management Team. We are on year 5 of our contract, and we help all 50 transit agencies across the state. So when the group reached out to NDOT, they asked our mobility management team to step in. In Nebraska, we've probably completed maybe 15 different feasibility studies to see what communities want to do for public transportation. Now, do you guys move ahead the slide, Kelly, or if you want to go ahead to page 3. One more if you want to. On your screen you guys will see that, why the world do you need a transit study besides the items that Hope mentioned, that you've had community members and residents in the city and actually in the county that have said, I'm struggling to get to work, to get to meals, to get to life things, whether it's the post office or groceries. Also in your community, if you look at your straight line increase for your population, the projections are showing that that's going to continue based on University of Nebraska population projections. Also, as you all know, Doug runs the transit agency here in Columbus. Looking at what's changed, post-COVID, there's a lot of different transit needs out there that were happening before transit, but they've been escalated since you have COVID, and it's almost over, but there's these like waves of it still continuing. So our goal was, when we met with the group that Hope is kind of leading, is what do we want to be in 10 years in Columbus? What do you want transit to look like? And if I look around the room, who's ridden on one of the buses? Anyone? We have 2.5 and maybe 3 if Doug can't raise his hand. He's a little biased, but that's like, what do we even do out there today? And realizing that some people aren't as fortunate as we are. They don't have a vehicle, or they may have one vehicle, and if someone goes to work, how do I get groceries? I've got a baby crying, I need diapers, I need to get to school, all of these things. So there's many different reasons to look at transit. And then also, if you all just look at your employers that are coming into town and the employers that live outside the space, Hope is fortunate enough to have 3 of the major manufacturers sitting on the committee. Each one of them have expressed interest on getting employees on first, second, and third shift. So that's another voice in this, that if you leave them out, you still have a need. But when you look at when we can employ folk, they spend money in our community, that's a job that we can fill, and that's one of the goals of transit too. Go ahead, next slide please, Kelly. In a typical transit plan, I'm not going to read through all this. There's, identify your vision. Where do we want to be? You talk about what's going on in our community. We look at the needs. What did our community tell us? And then find some solutions. And at the end of the day, how much does it cost? And where do we get the money? So I'm a numbers cruncher, so I always get to the bottom line as soon as we can. And then how do we pay for it at the end of the day? Next slide, please. And then one of the things that was loud and clear from the committee that Hope is leading is, why do we even care what our community says? We have elected officials that can make a lot of decisions, but if we don't have buy-in from our neighborhoods, from our groups, from these major businesses, we missed a big piece, because you can always have a plan, but if your people don't believe in it, then we've made a mistake there. So next slide, please, if you go ahead. That's one of our goals, is to get out to the community as much as we can. Again, we looked at population, we look at your future land use. You guys are booming. You have a booming group. That's not changing in the comp plan that's out there today. We look at the travel patterns, because one of the items the committee said is, wait, is it just Columbus? Is it people coming here? You have a very active community. You've got medical, you've got jobs, you've got colleges here. Like, there's a lot going on, and so people are also trying to come in and out of your community. And then technology. What the world do we do without technology? Next slide, please. The service that Doug operates today is the CAT service, Columbia Area Transit. It operates Monday through Friday. If you guys aren't aware of this service, we do have service within the city limits. The budget is just over $200,000, just right in that range. $30,000 of that is local funding. That's the city, United Ways, and some fares. In the city, we provide about 6,000 trips, which is great. And one of the performance statistics down low is, if you look at an average transit industry, bullet number 3 says passengers per revenue hour. Across the United States, that's usually a 2.0, and Doug's service here is 2.4. It's a higher one than what you see across the nation. So it's really good to see numbers like this, and Doug's crew is doing a good job. So that was really great to see, just coming in when you're looking at statistics. Want to give you another similar sized city. Next slide, please. In North Platte, a very similar population to what you have here, also booming. Their population is it's not as fast as where you are in Columbus, but it's also a growing population. They offer a 20-mile radius outside of the town. Demand response service, so you still have to call for a ride. You have to pick up, hey, can you pick me up at home, go to Walmart or school or wherever you're going to go. Their statistics, they do 47,000 trips a year. And you're like, wait, what? And they also have a very heavy population of students. And Doug, if I could ask you, what percentage of population is your K through 12? Pretty close to zero. And if we called North Platte Transit and said, what's your population, I'd say probably 40% of their ridership are kids getting to and from school, after school programs. They've made a commitment because that was one of the needs that the community saw there. So just different audiences, but still a similar size city that you see. And you can see a picture of their bus. It's similar to what we operate here today. Next slide, please. So we began this in February, again, meeting the group that Hope is leading. Why do we want transit, and then what kind of monies are we going to use if we change up what we're doing today? Next slide. One of the pieces that the committee wanted was to look at a survey, because if we don't talk to our people and we just do a plan, we don't really know exactly what they're going to say. So we developed a survey in May. In June, we developed it like early May. It went out mid-May, and then we closed it about a month later. You could actually, I hope you all filled it out. Next slide, if you want to switch over. This is what it looked like for those of you that did take it. You could have a QR code. The newspaper here in town actually ran a story on it. It was wonderful for their coverage. And then there were links that you could fill out, and we were lucky enough to have just under 1,000 surveys. Go ahead, next slide, please. It was 927. We had 807 in English and 120 Spanish responses. This first question on the slide, you guys, I won't read it all to you, but it says, do you know someone that has a challenge finding transportation? We didn't ask what to, it was just, are you struggling to get where you're going? In English, half our responses said, yeah, they do know somebody or they struggle. In the Spanish responses, 75% of the population said we know someone or I struggle with that. So it is very telltale of what Hope has heard, and the community organizations that are on her committee have also stated that. Next slide, please. Do you have a vehicle available for transportation? This is a little bit surprising. You know, they said, we didn't ask how many vehicles, we said, do you have a vehicle? But 80% of our English responses were, yes, I do have a vehicle available. On the Spanish one, it said 57% have that. So definitely our minority population, you know, half the folk don't have a vehicle. So, you know, they're walking, they're biking, or they're using Doug's service today, which is, again, a need. Can they not get to work because they don't have a dependable, you know, vehicle available? Next slide. This one is where, okay, you get lots of data with surveys. You have unmet needs, and there's 7 different bullets here that, you know, I think we had over 1,000 different responses, and to try to summarize those for a council presentation, you're like, just give me the Cliff Notes version. But limited access to vehicles. So that a little bit goes hand in hand with the other response that said, oh, we don't quite have a vehicle. People wanted weekend transportation. Doug operates Monday through Friday right now. Life doesn't stop at 5 o'clock on Friday for many people. And then you have limited access for Central Community College. That was definitely prominent in the answers that we received. Transportation to Columbus for people living outside the city limits. So again, and they didn't say what county, it just said outside our city limits. So again, we have that. Limited options outside the city limits for kids, families, elderly trying to get to work, school appointments, and employment. So more detail from the previous one. Limited wheelchair accessible transportation. Doug's vehicles are wheelchair accessible. That's one of the benefits that is great for the agency. And then the last one talks about lack of knowledge. So some people just don't even know. No matter how much you advertise or this, they just don't know what options are out there for the community. So in a summary, this is what we took back to the community. These were the results. And if any of the council are interested in the detailed response for that, you're welcome to those. It's public information. We're happy to share that. If you just want to contact either Doug or Hope, we can get you that link to the information. The final survey result question, just wanted you all to hear this, and then also when we presented to Platte County, you know, approximately 90% of our people said that our entities should work together. This isn't a shock, but it's very encouraging whether you're a private business, whether you're a governmental agency or a nonprofit. You know, our community sees the value in us working together, and that was one of our specific questions in the survey. Next slide, please, Kelly. So at the end of the day, we do have lots of data. Some of our options, do we expand Columbus area transit? That certainly is one of our options. Do we partner with other transit agencies in the area or other? Does someone else have a different idea? Usually those two are our primary ones when you're looking for immediate solutions. So then you're like, okay, Corrine, so put the numbers here. So go ahead if you want to go 2 slides ahead there. Next one, please. Then you put your numbers in your spreadsheet, and then you actually figure this. The city has the opportunity, and they've taken advantage of it for many years, of receiving federal and state dollars. So, for example, when Doug spends $1, 25% of that is paid by the city, 25% by the state, and 50% of that by the federal government. You have to pay it in advance, but it is a reimbursement that we're eligible for. So whatever expanded service that you all do in this community, you are still eligible for those federal and state dollars. So we developed these 7 different options. We took this back to the committee, and they prioritized these. On the next slide, please, if you go ahead one more. The 3 that are in green that you see were the priority of like tier 1, tier 2, and then tier 3. Outside city limits, employer transportation, and school transportation were the priority from the committee. And if you look at the local match required for that, it's like central. I don't have the columns labeled, apologize for that, but you do see the local match that would be required for those services, but you also see the reimbursements that would be brought back into the community itself. So the committee recommended that we go to Platte County and that we go to city council so that you all know about this study, that it's being, your residents that vote for you are the ones that are participating in the surveys and these results and will have direct impact on whatever is decided for that. So no surprises. I don't like surprises. I like everyone to know whether you're a neighborhood group or whether you're council, you still need to know what's going on. So our next steps, and last slide, are the presentations to the county 2 weeks ago and then this one tonight. The task force will meet in 2 weeks, and then we'll talk more about, are we happy with these priorities? Do we need to talk to other folk? Do we need to talk to other counties? And then we look for the funding to get those implemented. Happy to take any questions. That's just a brief summary of where we are. And Doug knows the system way better than I do, but if you have specific questions or just about the study in general, happy to take those.
Council members, do any of you have questions? Troy?
This is probably more for Doug. In the past year or two, I know you had cut the weekend and maybe some of the hours, and
Yeah.
maybe a bus. Have you found that the trend now is getting?
Yeah, we probably would need to go back, and most of the hours we cut were because of COVID. And so then we didn't do weekends. Most of our clients had realized, okay, weekends weren't available, so they worked out their schedules to make it work.
Okay.
And evenings, but I see a need in the future as we expand. But the biggest concern and the biggest complaint we mostly get is people outside the city limits. It's limited. We can't take people to Balin's. We can't take people to Chemical or any place like that.
Thank you.
Doug, do your employees have to be CDL licensed?
No, they do not.
Okay. And so where do you think you might find drivers?
That will be another major struggle. I mean, we struggle now we have 2 drivers now that work, they're normal hours, but they're very dependable, so we don't have to really worry about that. Then our dispatcher, on an emergency, she can work and drive. So that will be a major concern, is to try to find drivers.
Okay.
Across the state, that is an absolute challenge. Yeah.
Just a question on the survey itself. Did you get a demographic breakdown? So, I mean, we've got about 1,000 participants, but how many were from outside the city limit?
We did actually ask, I believe, the zip code, so we do have that. Now, unfortunately, some of our geographic zip codes are, larger, but we can get that information for you, sure.
Good. One other question. I think it was really telling that North Platte has a lot of students that utilize a service such as this. Does the North Platte school system reimburse any of this toward? Because the school system's responsible, in my mind, to help or to... Anyway, it's a question that we can talk about further.
I do know the school district of North Platte does not contribute. That
I mean,
is city funded.
it was just a question in that regard.
Yeah.
And then one further question I had could we take a specific survey like to Central Community College, just to them? Because I do think that would be an area that could get a lot of use out of something like this, but maybe not. I mean, I don't, it'd be interesting to see what that specific area thought about it.
We could definitely do that. Dr. Fisher is part of the task force, so she was provided on that and helped develop the survey, and I know she tried to get it to the students, but we can definitely take a more central look.
On that note, I'm curious too, if you were to bring it to like Chemico or Balin, especially since you have now second shift coming into play, like what does that look like for them, and if they could contribute monetarily, I think that would be a huge.
And many of
place
them
for them
are
to
at the
speak.
table saying that
Right.
they're willing to, but they can't be the only one. So
No, for
it's
sure.
gonna have to take a collaborative community effort, and then, of course, the county, if we're going beyond city limits, what does that look like? And who's gonna be the entity that kind of takes ownership?
Takes a village.
Right.
It does take a village, that is correct.
And as we've been during the surveys, I mean, at the beginning, Norfolk, it probably isn't the right community to talk to, but at the time, when we first started the survey, Norfolk, they were taking people to Lindsay and to Sioux City. And You know, which, you know, if we would get to that point, we would take people to Schuyler, to the packing plants, people to Madison to work, and different things, if we can look at that down the line.
I came from Norfolk today. We were working at the transit agency, and they have one active route to Great Dane today, which is right outside of Wayne, if you're familiar with that one. Tyson Corporation was another one that Norfolk was serving, and then Lindsay were all active, and each one of the manufacturers did contribute. They really value the service that, you know, when you can take 30 people there every day and they don't miss a shift and you can keep the factory going, that's how you make money. You know, that's it.
All right, council members, any more questions or comments? Very good. Thank you for your presentation tonight. We really appreciate it. There is no need for a motion on this evening, and so we will just move to the next item on the agenda, which is to adjourn.